It's Tuesday, December 19th, and you're listening to the Beer Temple podcast. End of your show.
Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again.
Hello, and welcome to the Beer Temple podcast. Thank you for the beautiful fade.
Sick fade.
Yeah, sick fade. Hey, you know what, Serge? You know what else you could do? If you could just hit that closest light switch, I'd appreciate it. Thanks.
Ooh,
now we go.
nice.
Maybe that'll look better.
End of year vibes.
End of year vibes.
Dramatic.
Yeah. Yeah, welcome, everyone. End of year episode. I am your co-host, Chris Quinn. I am joined by your other co-host, Mike Shalau of This Was Brewing. What's up, dude?
I'm good, Chris. I got my car back.
Great news.
Yep.
I think you did mention that, though, on the last episode.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because I had it for 10 days, and then my catalytic converter got stolen again.
Oh.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so luckily I did change my insurance to cover that now, but they're giving me the runaround trying to get into contact with them. So
Well, a more petty person than myself would say, I told you to get a new car the last time.
you
but
did tell me to get a new car last time, but
That sucks, man.
Yeah.
I want to get those people. I really do.
yeah.
I'm vindictive
It is-
for you.
yeah, it's funny because I lived in a much more supposedly dangerous neighborhood for years with the same car.
Right.
Now I live in a much
Yeah.
supposedly less crime-ridden area, and it gets stolen twice within a month.
I guess that's where the criminals come for property crime.
I guess so, or
I'm
maybe
really
they're in the
waiting-
neighborhood. Who knows?
I'm waiting for somebody to come up with a large format glue trap.
Yes.
Well, now I've got I might not be able to get comprehensive insurance for my car because it got stolen twice in 2 months unless I put a cage on it. So now I have to find a cage.
What?
Yeah.
All right.
So
Well, we'll see. We'll be waiting with bated breath.
right. So I'm just 2023 can kick rocks.
Okay.
In my opinion, I'm already over it. I'm in 2024.
Mentally,
vision.
you're already there.
2024 vision.
Got
I'm
it.
already there.
All right.
So
Well-
this show's gonna be tough for me.
Well, but this is it's all about this show is all about 2023. It's our
right.
year-end episode. We've been doing it for many moons. I think maybe as far back as 2016 or something like that. We've been doing this show.
Sounds right.
Yeah, maybe earlier. I don't know. We have a guest who would probably know. We should probably get to our guests because it is. It's a star-studded episode. It's always
Yeah.
we always bring in the best of the best.
Heavy
for
hitters.
The heavy hitters for the end of year show. So I think we should probably get right to it. Our first guest is the beer aficionado, aka Nostra Douglas,
Spoiler alert. For
aka
future shows.
the beer cruncher, aka Doug Valicki of Revolution Brewing. What's up?
Hey guys, thanks for having me back. My 1-year suspension is now over.
That's right.
I mean, we can get you another one if you want.
It was for
throwing-
backstage fighting.
We're more petty than Goodell. So
No, I went on another podcast. And I
Oh,
was,
that's right.
And I
That's
was,
true.
I was mentioning this podcast, and I was just trying to explain the fact that I get to show up in person. So I referred to it as a local podcast, and there was a little bit of butthurt over.
we've got listeners all the way up to the
My butt
Wisconsin
wasn't hurt.
border, almost all the way out to Geneva. We're
true.
We're out there, you know.
Yeah.
the term local didn't go over well, and but not here to talk about the past. Actually, we are, but my 1-year suspension is now up, and I'm back, baby.
Well,
to have
we're
you
as
back.
happy as everyone that your suspension is over.
Thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
I think that was my number one story of 2023 because, Doug, you did that in January. That podcast was in January of 23.
Wait, so So it's an 11-month suspension.
Well, it goes by when I'm likely to release the
sorry.
episode.
Oh, right, true. So 13-month suspension.
Yeah.
Adam Silver over here.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on.
Excited to be here.
Yeah. Our next guest, first time zooming in, is Mr. Jude LaRose.
LaRose,
LaRose.
a.k.a. Jude De La Rosa.
Yes, exactly.
That's right.
Jude De La Rosa. You know, it's a shame, Jude. This is episode 312. We missed it by one episode to have you on episode 311.
That was an all-time fumble on our part.
That was a fumble. We really messed that up. But I did name it in your honor. The episode went up today, and the name of the episode is Amber is the Color of Your Energy, episode 311.
Thank you.
That's
I
and all for
appreciate
you.
that.
Yeah.
I was hoping it would have been dedicated to me. On the last one, you talked about 316 and it being a stone cold one.
Right.
And then I wondered when 311 was actually going to be. So I appreciate the thought. I'm so stoked to be here. Thank you for having me on.
I mean,
Yeah.
do we have to wear bald caps and only drink Coors Lights on episode 316?
You might be able to.
I don't have to wear a ball
you
cap.
Might be able to get him on the pod. He does beer media stuff to promote his beer.
Really? That would be sick.
I mean, I know this is just a local podcast.
Get
but-
him.
Yeah. Oh, hey,
We'll tell him about our listenership in Geneva, and he'll be all over it.
it's true. I think,
Maybe an advanced box of beer too. What is that? That's El Segundo, right?
yes.
Yep.
Well, I think California is one of our. It's like we have after Illinois. I think it's California or New York is where we're listened to the most. But I think it's California.
That would make sense.
I mean, it is like
population-wise.
Yeah, almost the whole West Coast.
Sheer
right?
numbers.
Yeah. But and our third guest is Mr. John Rubio of the Beerists. What's up, man? How are you? Long time no see.
Good, man. I've been trying to get your numbers up in Texas by listening to each of your episodes 25 times.
Nice. Thank you. We
That's you.
appreciate
That was you? Aw.
Yeah.
You know what? You deserve some 3-tier merch.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's really tough. I got to go from like public library to public library
Get on different
just
Wi-Fis.
to scramble up the IP addresses.
We appreciate that.
Yeah. And also, we don't care. If we see the same person downloading it, we're just as happy.
We'll get you a 3-tier like hotspot Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
3-tier branded.
No, like an IP vanisher.
Yeah.
We got him a 3-tier branded IP. Yeah.
He has to have a couple of those laying around, right?
Oh,
Just a VPN with a random number generator.
Yeah, there we go.
Exactly.
Don's definitely got a
VPN.
couple of those kicking around in the merch box.
yeah. You know,
Next to
before
the
we,
Yeti tumblers.
I want to look back also at some recent reviews that we've had.
Oh,
And
nice.
I wasn't really thinking about it until right now because we got one about a month ago. I don't know if we might have already mentioned it. This would be very very me if we had. Did we mention?
Don't.
Well, we got 2 on the same day. I think we talked about the Philadelphia Phillies of beer podcasts, 2.5 bottle caps.
So we-
Matt Davis wrote that, but then this
Damn,
same
2.5.
same day, and he signed it, Matt Davis. So that seems to be a thing: is people giving us 2.5 bottle cap reviews because. Yeah, the Perfect Beer Podcast, 3 bottle caps. It's the Allagash White of pods. That's where it kind of started.
That's the goat.
I wonder if it'll actually start affecting our rating because enough people are giving us 2.5 bottle cap reviews.
Are they actually giving us 2.5 stars? Or are they just writing
3
2.5?
stars.
Damn.
3 stars too. Yeah.
That's cold.
I
Not
mean,
as cold as this cold
gotta-
black IPA.
You got to go all the way through with the bit. If it becomes a
Oh,
problem, we'll mention it. But there's another one that said that it's the Don Bixel of podcasts. Rob Todd, homie, times dude using a quill equals best guest ever. Do I get 3-tiered merch?
Absolutely.
The answer to Word Kid Word, that was a 5-star review, by the way, was because it's the Don Bixel of podcasts, is yes. I asked Todd. I asked Don. I didn't ask Rob Todd. And he said you absolutely can get 3-tier merch. So that is the official okay in my mind of everybody who wants it getting it. So if you want 3-tier merch and you've left a review that we've mentioned or we read your letter on the air, just let us know what size, or let us know in your Apple podcast review what size 3-tier shirt you want.
What is happening?
Yeah. It's the year-end show. We got to clean up. This is housekeeping. Yeah.
And if there are any enterprising young people listening to this and want to leave a TripAdvisor review for this podcast,
exactly.
you should.
Exactly.
We're also on Foursquare.
Yeah.
Catster.
And the person who wrote the parchment paper one also translated it into
Elvish
e-ink and put it up on here as well. So
wow.
Yeah. So thanks to all those people. So that was Don who wrote that one.
Don wrote that
with
one?
one N.
Oh, okay.
Not Don
Sure
Dixel.
it is. Sure it is.
Yeah.
He just wants to keep his merch.
So I wanted to mention that.
You know what else I'm excited about, Chris?
What is that?
Book club.
Yes.
I got my book
club.
in the mail, started reading it.
Yeah?
Off to a great start.
Great.
Got 3 pages in, I fell asleep. That's not the book's fault. That's just kind of how I roll.
Okay. Good.
But so far, it's wonderful. He's on a ship.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to
There's a lot of that in the book.
being on a ship.
Mm-hmm. A lot of being on the ship in a ship in the book.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's exciting. Yeah. So we got that coming up.
Hops and Glory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is that February that we got that coming up?
I believe so.
Yes.
And they'll be able to get it at the
somewhere
store.
on somewhere they'll be able to get
Chris is buying
Hops and
100
Glory.
copies, right?
Just Google it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Remind me before, and then I'll go grab one of those. Okay. Anything else people would like to add? Yeah. Are there any beers that anybody has had recently that you would like to talk about that isn't your beer of the year?
Yeah, I'll go first. I'm drinking the Firestone Walker Arctic Wookiee. So, when I get excited about a beer style, I tend to, make a bunch of social media posts about it, from memes to talking the business side to getting my hands on a few and drinking them, sharing what I think. One of those was cold IPAs. Another one of those was black IPAs. So when I saw Firestone make a cold black IPA, which I had heard as the butt of jokes before, but then they actually did it, I was intrigued because I know they're very thoughtful about what they do. This came from their propagator. And I try not to do this more than like once a year, where I beg a brewery to mail me some beer, and I did that with this. I used my 2023 card on this one. And we have a collaboration in the works with them, so I felt a little comfortable asking, and they graciously sent some out. So That's what we're drinking tonight. I guess I was a little bit disappointed that they didn't call it by its more populous name of Black Lupo Lager.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I thought they'd go that direction, but they went with cold black IPA. But
Cascadian Lupo Lager.
Wait, but the Cascadian Dark Ale, so there's no dark in the Cascadian Lupo Lager necessarily. Is it a Czech dark
Cascadian Dark Lupo Lager.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah.
Rolls off the tongue.
So, yeah. I don't think the third eye would approve of this, but we're gonna power through it anyway.
You know what? It smells like Bookie Jack. I'm having some right now.
Crazy how they did that.
Yeah. I mean,
kept the rye in it too.
Yeah. No,
so.
it smells very much like how I remember Wookie Jack. I haven't tasted it yet, but cool.
Very
Thanks
good.
for bringing some.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else who'd like to talk about a beer that they've had lately that they've quite enjoyed?
I've actually been drinking a lot of a beer that Serge brought us, because I have another friend that was in Wisconsin that knows this is my favorite New Glarus beer, but 2 women.
Yes.
My friend Ari was up in Wisconsin and brought some back, and I've been sipping on that, and now Serge brought some back too, so I'll be drinking pretty for a while. It's a nice little lager, a little kind of amber hue to it, all Weirman malt.
You know what I found out about a beer that I like a lot? I'm not talking about it because it's a beer of the year or anything like that, because I'm not giving that away. But
I think we all know what
No, you don't know anything. Okay. I haven't even really made up my own mind yet, so there's no way anyone else can know. But Bad Head, I just checked. I asked when they're going to be dropping the beer, and I think it's landing. They're hoping the 27th, so they can deliver it the 28th. And I'm leaving for Philadelphia on the 27th, so I won't even be here.
I hope so much it sells out before you get back. That would be
really mean of you to hope that. And also, it's funny that you think that nobody would think enough of me to. But it would also be funny if I'm in, on that day, if I'm traveling, I might be at Fatheads.
Yeah, you're still going to stop, right?
Probably, yeah. I'll be going to see if there's any merch I want. Yeah. You know.
Oh, the best merch.
7 time. It's a charm. I'll find
to
some.
hopefully find some piece of merch that you might wear.
Yeah, other than the hat.
The hat.
So, so that was my little beer news, but we got a lot. Should we jump into it, or is there anyone else who wants to go?
I think there's a couple other people that might want to go.
Yeah.
John, you got anything?
Not really.
Nice.
Well, I got turned on to the beers of Vossen recently for the first time.
I've never heard.
I don't even remember where they're from, but we did a lineup of beers from Vossen on the show, and they were spectacular. Even their hazy IPA, which is something that I'm not really a big fan of. I don't like that style so much. It was wonderful.
Nice.
All right. Well, Jude, you good to go, or you got something?
I got a couple.
Oh,
I'm probably going to take a page out of Eric Capron's book.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to
yes.
shout out to Stay Song with Sprue Tip and Honey, aged in gin barrels.
Oh,
so
who did that?
Had a Is-Was beer recently. That was real kick-ass.
Nice.
Mike, what's the name of it?
Tree Tipper.
Mm-hmm.
The gin,
Tree Tipper
the
was
gin
so
barrel
good.
version of Tree Tipper.
Is this the fourth or fifth time you guys have made
I think
that?
it's the fourth. Well, we've only been open for 4 years, but it's the 4th time we've made it.
Right
Tree
on.
Tipper. Make it every year around this time of year. And that one was last year's batch, aged in Caledonia Spirits gin barrels, and then had a little bit more spruce tips added to it after we pulled it out of the barrels. Blended with a little bit of fresh beer, too, to cut the gin a little bit. Yeah.
So shout out to Tree Tipper.
Nice.
Had a red ale from Riverlands recently. That was really good, too. So shout out Riverlands in St. Charles. Those are 2 great beers. And then right now I'm drinking a Concordance Czech-style Pilsner from Roaring Table out in Lake Zurich.
Shout out to Lake Zurich.
3 really good beers. Shout out to Lake Zurich.
Cool. Yeah.
Nice.
Eric would be proud.
Yeah. It's your
Shout out
boy.
Eric Capron.
Yeah. All right then. So let's get into it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go down. We're gonna talk about everyone's beer of the year. We're gonna talk about the story of the year for everyone, and then we might take a look back at some of our past predictions. We used to do a lot of predictions on this show, but since now we've got that exclusive deal with the soothsayers, they get a little, to use a term that Doug likes to use a lot, I think too much, butt hurt. He's always using that word, but I think in this it's appropriate here. The soothsayers get a little butt hurt, so they're
a sensitive bunch.
Yeah, so we're gonna hold off on
They're
any
like
of our
precogs.
Predictions. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there are some others.
We might sneak
that
a couple
Yeah,
in.
and I think maybe Jude and John may have some predictions as well that we can do. I don't think they would get too upset by that.
No, they're not part of the contract.
Yeah. Yeah, don't want to upset them because they already know how this contract's going to work out. We don't.
They're very litigious, and they know how
and they already know
it's going to work out.
Yeah,
we're protected. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, so
Carve out.
Let's start out with everybody's 2023 beer of the year, and before we go, I'm just going to say I like to mention this. It can be your beer of the year for any reason that you want. It can be because it was the most important beer to the industry. It was your favorite beer. So we're not all trying to, measure this on the same scale. So it's
just not one rubric for
your own personal beer of the year for whatever reason. So, who wants to go? Who wants to go first? Who do you think should go first, Mike?
Who do I think should? I think you should go first.
Oh, okay.
So it's not so suspenseful. And
because everyone's waiting.
We can figure out what possibly could be your beer of the year.
Okay. Well, I thought about this for a long time.
Actually, you know what? I changed my mind.
Oh.
John Rubio should go first.
Okay.
My beer of the year is Headhunter.
Why is that?
Fatheads Headhunter. Man, best beer, best IPA in the world. Won gold at everything.
Yes, that's right.
The best thing I've ever
Wind
had.
out of sails.
No, that was actually going to be my beer of the year, but
Yeah,
then I
tell me
noticed
about it.
on the research that you guys had posted up that it was going to be Chris's, so I had to pivot and change mine.
No, we'll talk about Headhunter then. Yes, it is also my beer of the year, but I want to hear why it was your beer of the year, John.
It is just so good. I recently had my first Headhunter in, I guess, the last year. I hadn't had one in a while, and somebody sent me a couple of cans of fresh Headhunter last month, and it was absolutely spectacular. Like, I felt like it had all of the great things that I love about hops in beers today, but it also felt like I was stepping through a time tunnel to 8 years ago.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think we've talked about it, but like it does give me similar like emotional vibes to when Sculpin was really hitting when it was coming here.
Yes.
And everyone was like, "Oh my god, it's so expensive. It's like $14 for a 6-pack of this."
Right.
And when it was coming here fresh all the time and just killing it every single time. Like when I drink that beer, I have very similar feelings to when I would drink fresh Sculpin.
Right.
You know, you saying that, it kind of reminds me of this thing that I've been using as a shorthand for beers that make me feel like that, is that they're emotionally nurturing. And that beer is certainly emotionally nurturing. Like it feels like a hug.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
What? It's a big fat hug.
Yeah. I'm actually wearing my Fatheads hat right now.
Nice.
Wow.
That's pretty sweet.
You have Fatheads merch. Look at you.
Yeah. That's probably one of the more tasteful pieces of merch I've seen them
Yeah.
make.
Yeah. I mean, I could put on mine. Well, not really mine. I'm borrowing it. But
Right.
maybe I will
You do
later.
have a standee.
It's true. I
Yeah.
do. And a tin. So
You got a lot of merch.
I guess I do. Okay. Yes, I also have Headhunter as the beer of the year. I think, one, because I'm very excited that it's going to be coming to Chicago. By the way, Doug, let's do a little cheers to that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Why don't you give the cheers?
Okay, you can have a
Hey.
cheer. I think Doug was instrumental in the beer coming here, as I've said before. I also think it's pretty cool that it won gold World Beer Cup JBF same year. Never happened before. We talked about it before. I have gone back and looked.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool, especially for a beer as old as it is.
Yeah, it's absolutely
Pretty
having
cool.
a moment.
It's
Like,
having a
It's not just
moment.
like we love it. Like it also was in Craft Beer and Brewing magazines, like top like 10 beers of the year.
Yeah, something like
and
that.
it's a
yeah.
beer that's been around for almost a decade,
Yeah, I think more. Yeah.
and it's tasting and a lot of those beers that
No,
we
it
love-
won like 13 years ago.
Okay, so
yeah,
more than
yeah, over a decade.
I should
yeah.
probably know this. We talk about it enough.
Enough. Yeah, we can
I think
move
the
on.
first time we had it, I think the first time we tasted it on the Beerists was in 2013.
Wow.
Yeah.
One thing I want to add on to with Headhunter personally, so I'm from Pittsburgh, where Fathead's original brew pub was. So always had a little connection to it as well. But I went to two. My son just got to the age where he appreciates baseball, and we happened to be in Pittsburgh for opening day, and then we went back in August. And Headhunter is a beer you can get in like every concession at PNC Park in Pittsburgh at a baseball game. And not only that, if you look out into center field, there is a Fatheads bar in
Oh,
center
really?
field.
Yeah.
So not only is this beer like kind of capturing like a wide range of people, but like winning back-to-back golds in the same year, but it's also a beer you can get at the ballpark.
Right.
And
Right. It isn't like a
It's not
stand
some-
in line beer.
yeah.
Right.
Makes it so much better too.
Right. It is cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited to not be here when it drops. Well, very cool. Oh, and also the actually the main reason that it's the beer of the year is because of the amazing new brand refresh it went through this year. That we've been waiting for, and apparently has already happened, and we didn't even realize it. So, I guess that answers
Maybe the brand refresh
that.
was just that it's tasting amazing.
And we have been talking about that for about 6 months, like what we thought the brand refresh is going to be, and apparently it's already happened. So,
It's subtle,
yeah,
tasteful.
Yes, tasteful, subtle. So no yoked up fatheads. No Ozempic fatheads. No
Ozempic fathead
my
would make me so
1,000-pound
sad.
life fatheads. But
That was a running joke all year, right? Like you guys didn't get wind or just know. No one like tipped you off that there was going to be a brand refresh.
They
right?
put out a
That
press
was a
release.
joke
no, they put
all
out a
year?
press release. They mentioned
They
it.
did?
tipped
Oh
us
my
off with the
gosh,
press
really?
release.
Yes. No, that was real.
Yeah, that was
There
real.
really
I
was
thought
a
that
brand
a running
refresh.
joke by you guys all year.
No,
No,
that was a true thing.
It was true. And then I asked when it was happening, and the sales rep was like, "Oh, it's just it was just a little tweak."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, okay."
I thought that you guys were creating the brand refresh for them every time you brought it up. But
No.
okay,
I mean,
now I need to go back.
We would kill to be on that team.
exactly. Everyone
just
else-
walk in there and be like, no notes, keep it.
Yeah.
They knew. They already knew.
And you and I having huge, just screaming match arguments over whether he should be yoked or
Ozempic.
1,000 pounds.
Oh, yeah. He's got to bulk before he gets
Yeah,
yoked, dude.
exactly.
There's a trajectory to this. Haven't you seen It's Always Sunny?
A crane has to lift him out of his chair.
That's right. Get him on TLC.
Well, but that is the other reason that it was the beer of the year for me. But John, did you have a second, or did you just want to keep it to Headhunter? Is that
I had to come up with something different because I didn't want to steal your thunder, which I ended up doing anyway, and I'm sorry. I hope I'm invited back
I blame
at
myself.
some point. But
Just don't go on any other podcasts.
I'll try not
Yeah.
to. I'm gonna fire myself for my own
good.
fun, too.
It's good.
I, for the first time ever in drinking beer, had one of those breakthroughs. Like, you know how sometimes you could drink something and not like it and not like it, and one day you just kind of get it? That happened to me for the first time in, I guess, since the 90s when I started drinking better beer. I started liking smoked
Benjamin
beers.
Danko? Oh. Wow, for real, smoked beers. Okay.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah, it
one? So
happened-
you're saying which ones in particular, or just all
Well,
smoked beers? You're just a fan.
I think I'm a fan of all the like German rock beers. I think and that's where it's starting for me. And it started out with the Live Oak released this 6-pack mix pack of different rock beers. It was
That's so awesome.
fantastic.
That's cool.
6 different smoked beers, all beautiful. And then I started going to the stores and just buying like Schlenkerla, like 4 or 5 different versions of that. And then I've had, smoked Saison over here. And I like smoked beers now. Like I can count myself as one of those people.
All right.
Nice. That's awesome.
Smoked beer. So yeah, you're a smoked beer guy.
Yeah, I've been kind of obsessed. Yeah.
I will say, I would say more than any other style, like people are like evangelists and love smoked beer. The people who like them. There's people who just like absolutely love smoked beer.
I feel like
Sir William Moore, he, friend of the show, been on in the past, is a huge smoked beer guy.
I feel like people that really love smoke beer feel like they have to defend it. Like
Maybe.
they have to, they have to protect it. Like
Right.
I don't know if this is relatable to smoked beers or any other style for you, but I love ordering a smoked beer when I'm at a beer bar or even at a brewery that has one on tap, but I have no interest in having one in my house. Like,
Sure.
I don't
Okay.
need cans in my fridge, but I'd love to order one when I'm on site and I just want one. I tend to actually order it pretty often when I see one.
Yeah.
But if they had a 4-pack in the fridge, I'd just, even if I liked it, I probably wouldn't
Yeah.
take
Like,
it.
maybe once, maybe later.
Right.
So it is like a very legitimate, like a change up in the arsenal of what you're drinking, right? Where you're like, it will do the job when you really want to smoke beer. Only like a Rauch beer will do the job if you want to have that flavor. Like
Right.
there's no like, I guess I'll drink this milkshake IPA instead. It's just you
Right.
have to.
And
you
I
have to
feel like if you're ordering one, there's also a decent chance it could be atrocious. I've found. I mean, just like really not good. But also the ones when they're done well can be really, really nice. I mean, my favorite is the Helles, the Strength Helles, personally.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a all-time great beer. And
That
I
was
don't
so good.
I don't consider myself a huge smoke beer guy, but that one I think is pretty much like
Beautiful.
unarguably, yeah.
That one's like
an
smoke is a
amazing beer.
seasoning more than
Yeah.
smoke is the main event,
Yeah.
which is nice.
Yeah, but it's really cool. I once had a beer that had the same approach to smoke as the Schlenkerla Helles, but it was with a hef. So it was a hef with just a kiss of smoke,
Ooh.
and it was like
That could be cool.
really, really good. Yeah. So
Nice.
yeah, it's
And that
I
approach you're
believe
saying.
recently Dovetail declared Chicago a Rauk beer city and officially said Chicago is the Bamberg of the U.S. for what it's
my
worth.
goodness.
I guess you can just say stuff.
I guess you can say things. Yeah, sure. Why not?
you can say whatever you want.
Okay.
This is the Bamberg of podcasts.
Right.
I'm gonna
I think
laugh
it's great.
over here. I'm gonna laugh over here in Austinite.
Right, yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I don't think that Dovetail did make a 6-pack of 6 different smoke beers, so it might be a little
Right.
Hey,
presumptuous.
well, one of their first 3 beers they rolled out with was a Rauk beer, right?
That's true.
It's true. I mean, they've been making Rauch
They've
beer
been
for a
yeah,
while.
Yeah, they've been committed to the game for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Alaska. I mean, Alaskan
That's
Smoke
smoke
porter.
porter.
smoked porter. They've been
It's an
making that
OG.
forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But all right. Well, who's going
Hey, I
next?
think we could call Chicago a Rauk beer city. Why not? Come on.
Well,
Let's
you
go.
can say it's a
Well,
Rauch
you
beer
can say
city,
whatever
but
you
saying it's the Bamberg of is a little
Let's
different.
go. Why not? Come on.
All right, fine. Start making them then. I mean, you're a block away from Dovetail.
Start smoking our own malts.
Yeah, exactly. Beechwood.
I mean, they do that.
They do.
though.
They're well. That's Bamberg is Beechwood. We're probably pallet wood.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Trash.
think we have a new prediction for 202024 entry officially made right now.
Yes, exactly.
Chicago will become internationally
Chicago will
renowned as the
become-
Bamberg of America.
Write it down.
Yeah.
Shout out Dovetail.
Book it.
Who's next for their beer of the year?
Jude's probably makes sense to go next.
Yeah.
Okay, Jude.
All right. So mine was Coniston Bluebird Premium XB.
Ooh,
Best
yeah.
beer, favorite beer of the year, and had at the Beer Temple.
Oh, kind of butter me up.
It was a magical experience.
It's a special beer.
It's a great beer. I used to think I liked the Bluebird bitter more, but then that XB that we had on, I did like even more. It was pretty awesome.
I mean, you and I have shared a special story about being at
True.
a very prestigious beer festival and only drinking Bluebird bitter at the after party when
That's
could
true.
drink anything we wanted.
Yeah, it's true. And I think it was like just a neglected keg that we were just like serving
We're-
ourselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It was well. They pulled all the kegs after the festival into
Right.
like the after hours area, and you can just serve yourself. And we drank that thing dry.
Yeah, that was good. It was
really
a good
good.
beer. I mean, those English beers, when they are in good condition, are very special.
And you see how they're the origin for a lot of stuff.
Yes.
You know, like when you have a really good one that's actually like fresh and singing, you're like, oh, I get how this has become American IPA, or how some like even Belgian beers
Yeah.
like originate as this with some yeast changes.
Yep.
Like you
Yep.
can see
Yep.
how that being the origin of a lot of commercial beers. Mm-hmm. It's pretty cool. It's like
Yeah.
drinking like a
What does Rubio
time
call
machine. Yeah. What?
it?
Say it again.
Flavorful hand job or something?
Jesus.
Emotionally nourishing.
Yeah, that's what I meant to
We're gonna
say.
you have to talk to your therapist about why you think
Close.
emotionally nourishing
Write that
means
down.
flavorful hand job.
Surge, mark down whatever time. That was great. Hey, it was a magical day. You guys were on a streak. I remember. You know, I don't know if it was January, February, March. I remember the weather outside. It was cooler, and it felt winter-like. But you guys were on a string of putting some really cool English beers on, or low ABV beers on, and I had missed a couple of them, but I had the time to be able to stop in and have it. And you know, it was served in the perfect glass. I think it was like an imperial pint glass. It was served perfectly. It had great foam. It was a beautiful color. I remember it was citrusy, and its malt character was like sprightly and full of vitality. And it led me on this path of figuring out what yeast they were using and what exactly the yeast character was providing. And It was insanely crushable. I went back to everybody. I feel, I told everybody in the brewery, if you're around Beer Temple, you got to try it. I know Beer Cellar, my local spot in Glen Ellen, then they picked it up. We picked it up we picked a keg of it up at the brewery off Lincoln Avenue. We drank it. We just recently tapped it again for our anniversary party. And I don't know, it very much informed a lot of the styles of beer that I drank all year, which was, I want to have like 3, 4 and just have a session of them and have them be under 5%. It was an truly amazing experience.
That's great. I mean, you hope that beer can provide that kind of experience to someone. You mentioned in your notes, Jude, that it also made you think of Mount Hood a lot more. What's with that?
Ooh. So, there are a lot of these hops that came out before our time when we became a brewery, and when the hottest hop coming out was probably like Simcoe or Amarillo. So there's a lot of and the palate and the flavor of beer and IPA has changed since then, but it made me think of hops that I've never used, and in particular Mount Hood, which this beer features. A couple podcasts. I don't know if it was Stan Hieronymus's newsletter that he wrote, or other podcasts that had mentioned this, but I believe Vinny Salerso of Russian River is sponsoring his own plot of Mount Hood. It's one hop that it's a passion project of his, and he wants to feature more in his beer. So he's throwing some weight behind this hop, and it just made me consider what that hop's doing in that beer, and how Hop Butcher could incorporate it, which is really cool, because again, there is a slew of hops that we've never used in our beers that I feel we probably could, and yeah, that help us grow as a brewery.
Very cool. I don't know if I've ever knowingly had a beer with Mount Hood in it. Obviously constant, but like I've never
not knowingly though.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I didn't, it's never been on a label that I'm looking at like, oh shoot, Citra and Mount Hood.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Citra Mosaic, Mount Hood.
But like my personal favorite hops are things like that. They're like the Grungeists, the little sneaky little guys that have not quite the alpha acid or the oils, but they're great
Grungeist
for
is
those types of beers.
Pretty great. Yeah.
So it made us consider what could we do with a very lean malt profile, and that supports hops whose best aspects or best characteristics are subtle, and that lend themselves to kind of the overall profile, which is like yeast that's maybe estery, hops that are lightly citrusy on top, and malt character that supports that, and then everything's restrained ABV body.
I mean, these sound like things I think about a lot.
Totally.
Ester-driven yeasts, really lean bodies, malt structures, and what hops actually work with those. Because it's not the same as when you have a very neutral yeast. You get different things, and you can overpower the yeast, and it doesn't even matter if you're using an ester-driven yeast at that point, if you're using something that's like super aggressive hop-wise.
Hell yeah.
So you can really get a lot out of hops that aren't the traditional ones that are kind of the auto-tune or the plug-and-plays.
Do you think that might be a reason why, like, the first iteration of American Belgian IPAs had that, like, almost like Belgian caricature of a yeast? It was so over the top with that ester profile, that like weird like bubblegummy.
Yeah, and I found anytime we use higher oil, higher alpha hops, that bubblegum character is way more pronounced with the yeast, and we use the same yeast every single time.
That's interesting.
And for some reason, using American hops more specifically and like higher alpha ones, and maybe just how we're using them, but that bubblegum character comes out, and that's something we try to avoid. Actually, that's like one of the things that I don't find attractive in our beers, at least. A little bit of it's fine, but yeah, we find it does something to the fermentation, something to the ester production of that yeast that. And probably more Belgian yeasts that is
interesting. It's just something that I remember it being like this doesn't taste like Belgian beer. It's like a caricature of it,
right?
And then hops on top,
right? And they just they're discordant in a lot. Not always. There's some really good examples of American hops used in Belgian beers, but sometimes it can be really a little discordant. But Mount Hood, Have to
There you go.
dig a little deeper into that one.
And that's why it shows you, how beautiful beer can be, that there's still something out there that, to be learned, that you can learn every day. That beer and the conversation we're having right now kind of changed the way or added to the way that we look at things, not just the things that we drink, but the things that we make. And that was so cool. And again, that I think is the beauty of beer.
Very cool.
Can I hog the mic one more second?
Of course.
Yes.
I feel like I've been preparing for this moment all year, and I didn't even know it. But
Whoa.
again, not to
gosh.
over compliment the Beer Temple podcast too
Drum
much.
roll. Start
But-
a drum roll, Serge.
But I feel like the end of year episode influenced this. I'm not one that usually can like recollect what his favorite was throughout the year. But coming out of last year's best in beer or last year's end of the year podcast, I started writing down beers that I had that had an effect. So I've got a quick little list I got to run through.
Yeah, do
the
it.
first one happened in January of 2023 this year, just immediately after this end of year podcast. I had it at the Beer Temple. My wife and I were in. We had a child or two with us, and we ordered off the bottle menu, which I feel
I remember this day.
more people need to do this.
Yes.
Order off the bottle menu at the Beer Temple. So we got a J.W. Lee's Harvest Ale 2001.
Wow.
Wow.
And it was amazing. I'll roll through it. The next one, there was Wisconsin. Justin Ragoni, our brewer Justin Ragoni, brought in an Augustiner Maximator.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if it's I don't know if it's a Doppelbock.
It is, yeah.
Amazing beer.
It is a great beer.
We brewed a blonde called Universe of Discourse. Shout out Hop Butcher. We single hop Nectaron
Shout out to
blonde ale
me.
around 5%. It was awesome. Shout out Cruz Blanca, Floridita. Had it at the beer
Yes.
cellar in Glen Ellen.
Oh, my God.
Awesome
Gosh,
beer.
love that beer. One of my
Great beer.
favorites.
Mosaic Double Daisy Cutter by Half Acre this year. West Coast style Daisy Cutter. A lot more recent Daisy Cutters have been London 3 fermented. Amazing beer. And then Augustiner Pilsner, crushed.
Oh.
We probably crushed a six of bottles in like a day. It was so refreshing. Had it on the hottest day. So good. So shout out to all those.
Okay,
beers.
thank you. Maybe I'll have to try to do that. I probably won't, but
Yeah.
I hope I do.
Life moves fast, you know?
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Easy beers.
Yes. Doug, how about you? What was your beer of the year? Yeah.
Yeah, so mine requires zooming out to the highest level. I went with Bud Light, thinking back
Bit of a turn from Coniston XB.
getting a little different,
Yeah.
different take here. But yeah, the impact of the Bud Light story was massive, and the effect that had on distributors, retailers, in addition to, of course, Anheuser-Busch themselves. I don't know to what extent it makes sense to rehash it, but I mean, you know, the way I understand it, I'm no journalist who was covering this, so I'm just going based on memory and articles from 6-9 months ago.
Yeah.
But I believe Bud Light brought in a new VP that was like in charge of the brand, and pretty quickly they, you know, did what all brands do, which is send out, you know, 6-packs to influential people with big followings, each with a different kind of angle to it, maybe pay them to do a post, stuff like that. It's just constantly happening all the time. One of probably a zillion people they sent these to was a influential member of the trans community, sent them a 6-pack that led to a video being posted. That video got a bunch of backlash, as many videos do, but then that backlash led to a backlash to the backlash and ended up becoming part of a controversial social topic, and ended up having both sides fighting, and then having the Anheuser-Busch kind of fail to take ownership of any one side or the other, and just kept misstepping in PR in ways that pleased neither side.
Right.
And it just kept it just kept getting worse and worse. Just when you thought they would do something that kind of puts an end to it, they just kept making it worse. And everybody knew there'd be like some impact on sales, but the impact was like numbers for the for the biggest beer brand in the world by a lot. When you're talking like 27% drops year over year in sales, like massive billions of dollars. And then again, the effect that has on especially their distributors, which I know, many will not shed a tear for, but just like the number of people this impacted throughout the industry, and just seeing how a category that we always would just by default say there's loyalty there. If you're a Bud Light drinker, you're a Bud drinker. If you're Miller, if you're Coors, if you're Pabst, that's just what you drink. All of a sudden, there was a massive portion of drinkers in that category who were up for grabs. Mm-hmm. And Nostra Douglas's one of my predictions for the year was just like
was exactly that.
Was the Bud Light? No, was that
Bud Light will piss off both sides of the aisle.
Was that craft breweries would be going hard at like a more economy priced American lager, premium lager, whatever you want to call it. We had already had one like as a draft only beer that we're going big on, but I just kind of thought that was going to be a thing. To really, it wasn't that big of a thing. I wouldn't call that prediction correct. There's a few like Garage Beer, if you've seen that. That's actually doing really well. There's a few others like that that have been popping up, and people I know that work for their distributors are like, it's selling really, really well. These like kind of new, kind of crafty, kind of mainstream-driven American lagers are doing well. And so now all of a sudden there's just like, not the loyalty everybody thought there was. So there perhaps is this opening, whether it's just for changing sides. We know that Miller and Coors saw massive bumps from this, but all of a sudden there maybe is this opportunity for craft breweries who want this. You don't need to want to do this. It's a different kind of economics selling a beer like that. So it has to be something I think you are excited to do and want to have as part of your beer brand, and it makes sense. But all of a sudden the case for it is a lot stronger than it even was when I was predicting it, I think. We've seen a lot of people willing to change sides, if you will, and even playing into like some people, some demographics drinking less these days, not drinking at all, but a lot of people just like cutting back a little. A lot of people who are cutting back are also willing to spend a little bit more as well. So that price, that different price point that like it's, let's say a Garage Beer versus a Bud Light might cost, still a very affordable beer, but maybe still twice the cost of Bud Light. If you're drinking half as much than you were, maybe you're not as bothered by the cost. You're not looking for this mass.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, from a dollar standpoint, probably the biggest beer story since some of the big acquisitions. I mean, just massive amounts of money at stake with that one. And let me ask, I mean, does anyone think that Bud Light, I mean, I think they can, but will they ever retain that number one?
This ties into some of the stuff I was going to talk about.
Okay, well then, do you want to just move on to yours then?
I mean, it's kind of the same conversation. Mine's like the flip side of the coin, where mine was Modelo, which actually took over
beer of the year.
Yeah, which took over the number one spot from Bud Light.
Yes.
And it wasn't just that it was Modelo, but then kind of the implication of Bud Light losing that spot, like you were talking about, and how Brian Roth, friend of the show, was in an article I was reading about how Michelob Ultra is actually on a trajectory to surpass Bud Light as the number 2 beer behind Modelo. So, like, just not only is Modelo representative of the fact that it is now the number 1 selling beer in America, which it had been in some bigger metropolitan areas, had been in Chicago for a few years at least, but that the idea and like the beer of Bud Light is, and that as a like this kind of paragon of how you make money selling beer has fallen apart. And something like Michelob Ultra, which is marketed to a completely different segment than the Bud Light drinker, might surpass it too.
Yeah.
And then additionally in that same article, it was the same idea of Dave Infante, the guy whose articles were on the show, saying that like there's probably never going to be another beer like Bud Light that has such high percentage of market share. It's just not how consumer behavior works necessarily anymore, and it's just not. It's totally possible infrastructure-wise, but you'll have to get our culture doesn't work that way anymore either.
I don't know.
However, I'm sorry, I was
Go.
going to say,
Yeah.
like, I think Modelo is on a track to do that.
Sure.
I mean, and not just because they've surpassed them in dollars. I think not yet in actual volume of beer,
Right, 'cause
but
it
they
is a more
will.
expensive
But
beer,
they
yeah.
will. It's the planes are flying in the other direction, and it will happen. It's just a matter of whether it's another year or two.
Right.
That's happening. But the way Modelo has managed to cross generations, and they have come up with a very simple and like empowering way of marketing that
Yeah.
Gen Z loves them, millennials love them,
Yeah.
boomers love them.
Yeah.
Like there's just like there's no Modelo is somehow cool to like every age range. I feel like.
Yeah.
And that's fascinating to me. So I feel like it could.
Yeah.
And that's the only one I'd say that. about.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was something else Brian Roth was saying, was that it was inevitable already that it would have eventually become the number one beer in America if you looked at sales trends and they followed what was going on. But the whole Dylan Mulvaney thing rapidly accelerated Bud Light's fall from that spot.
Yeah. One thing I wonder is how much. I'm not going to say this had anything to do with it, but it sure didn't help. I mean, for the 2 years before this happened, all that was being talked about in these circles was, I can't believe Bud Light is using their name Bud Light on hard seltzers, versus like a Anheuser-Busch, like something
Sure.
more general, even Budweiser. But to call it Bud Light hard seltzer, Bud Light hard tea, Bud Light hard sodas, they just like took that
Right.
brand and just
Yes.
plastered it on
Just
everything.
barfed it everywhere.
I wonder how like was there already like a what is this anymore, like already like kind of
Right.
a tiring of it, so that when this happened the loyalty was maybe teetering,
Right.
and then something like this then made it easier to set it down the path it did. It was
Right.
like already
They were already monkeying with like that connection people had with Bud Light full stop.
Maybe
right?
because they
As its
saw
own
it.
thing.
Maybe because they saw it happening and were trying to.
Probably.
I mean, they probably saw it before anyone, honestly.
Sure, but then also but then just to slap it on stuff that has nothing to do with either the way it tastes or the ethos of that brand, totally diluted it into the people that like were connected to it.
Right.
Like I would imagine a lot of the people that were drinking it, like were like, I'm not going to drink twisted tea. Like I'm a Bud Light drinker, and there's something like Americana. There's something masculine about it to a lot of those people that were then upset by what further pushed them off the cliff.
Right. I mean, has there been, or when's the last time that the number one beer in America has been a import?
That's a good question. I have no idea.
Yeah.
It might. It
it
might
must have been
not.
Bud for decades, right?
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean,
yeah, and
There might
before
not have
that, I
been a
think it was
time.
like Schlitz, Pabst,
Right.
Best Beer. You know, they were
Could have
all
been
vying
the colonial
for it.
era was probably the last time there.
But I mean, yeah, before that, I think there were German beers that were really, really popular, but would have to have been a German beer before that. And this might be the first time ever.
I would guess. Yeah.
Yeah, realistically, I mean, in the modern age.
Right. We just watched a movie where in the 70s you couldn't get Coors Light too far, so I can imagine
Yeah, right.
volumes of German beer were coming here and really dominating the market.
Does it get an asterisk for having the corporate headquarters and basically all non-production employees are they're based in Chicago?
Yeah.
But the brewing happens in Mexico. Like, does that change the fact that it's an import a little bit? Is it like
Yeah, it
because,
changes
like,
it a little
spirit
bit, but I
for
think
sure.
still it's and I also think people don't realize that. I think Constellation or Modelo Group is fine with it being that way. You know, they like it to be just exotic enough, and
Right.
what do you, man? Yeah, it's interesting. It also I think goes to show like just what makes a beer the best beer. The best-selling beer, best-selling beer, because that beer has never done anything for me. I mean, I think I like Hams more than that beer.
There's something very technical and nerdy to the way it actually tastes. That is, Jude, do you remember when we went to that baseball game, you, me, and Kevin?
Sure.
And we had a Modelo, we had a
Yes.
Bud Light, and we had a Michelob Ultra. Like, we got one of each and we were drinking them.
I think I would like Modelo the most of those three.
Well, but when you drink them, Bud Light tastes like banana water. Modelo tastes like apple water. And Michelob Ultra doesn't really taste like less than either of them.
Okay, so there's
acetaldehyde
in it?
Yeah, there's some like significant difference where it's like it's similar enough, but it's like, oh, it's differentiated enough for people that like are like, I'm this type of drinker, where they might be able to be like, oh, that is different from what I was drinking. I like that one more now, and that it's because of the taste. You can say it's because of the taste, you know that. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. There is they are fundamentally, they taste different, which everyone says those macro beers like, oh, they're all the same.
No, but they taste different. They taste somewhat different.
But none of the other ones taste like apple juice.
Yeah.
To that point too, I think that, since you've been going to baseball games or football games or basketball games as a kid, you would see either Miller or Bud everywhere.
Yes.
And then at some point you started seeing Modelo popping around and more of their dollars being spent. And then I think that article also goes into people, the younger generation getting older and more of legal drinking age and demographics changing. And then I think the demographics change too in football and baseball and basketball games. And now we're talking to a whole another audience. And now you're going to games and you're seeing Modelo for the first time. That probably has a pretty significant part in their, the growth in their popularity is just, overall corporate sponsorship.
I remember when that really started happening in Chicago, when I noticed it was at, I don't even know what it was called at the time. It's Guaranteed Rate Field now, but I think it was like 2018 maybe. Mm-hmm. Miller just assumed they were going to renew their deal and didn't try to pitch them on anything. And Guaranteed Rate Field was like, all right, kick rocks. We're going to go with Modelo and bring craft beer in here. And so like that was a huge shift. And it's been... Well, I don't know. And didn't Rev have a?
I was part of that.
Yeah, Rev had like a.
We took their space.
Yeah,
Miller space.
It was awesome. Got to get detail every once in a while at the old baseball game. But yeah, that was a huge shift. And remember, like Pat Berger always talks about how those are basically tied houses. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that the easiest thing to get is Modelo there, and you're like, it probably introduced a lot of people to Modelo.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the biggest accounts in the city.
Right. And there's just like generally changing demographics in America. Yeah, one of the articles I was reading talked about how, it still outperforms in Mexican and Latinx communities. And so like there's more and more people of that persuasion in America and drinking those beers. Mm-hmm. But now it's spread even much further than that. But they still like way outperforms even like most other demographics drinking that beer.
I'm not saying this is top 3 or even top 5 in the Pantheon, but just one thing that stands out, in addition to everything we've already said, is the shape of the bottle being unique, feeling just elevated.
Yeah, the
and
foil.
Then the foil. God,
Sorry, I
it's
didn't mean to
just
step on it.
No, it's fine. The foil just is the beautiful little touch, and it's like no wonder. Like that stuff doesn't happen overnight, but you pound that for years and years, and it's no wonder. Like it just stands out versus a plain brown bottle that most other beers are in versus this thing. Just feels more special. And the price, I don't know how many people even realize this, but the price of Modelo has gone up so much in the last couple years.
Yes.
It is like, I think if it's not on sale, if you go to a big store like a Binny's, it's going to be a $17.99 12-pack. That's like,
I had no idea.
That's like more than a Voodoo Ranger 12-pack.
Wow.
It's crazy.
That's nuts.
So the whole
I still pick
Modelo. People just buy based on bang for the buck. It's not like a brand like this can transcend it. People who want Modelo are gonna. It's proven to be able to withstand that. It's doing what it's doing.
Yeah.
At this really high price. Now it goes on sale all the time, and you're gonna find it less than that, plenty.
Right.
But that's like it's like frontline price.
But when you look up trends of purchasing like that, it's like the trend has been for many years. Less consumption, more money spent over and overall dollars too, not just like more per ounce, but like more money spent per total, but less actual consumption.
Yep.
Here's a hot take that I've
really
had.
This was on the prediction show.
Oh, was it really?
You did it.
Did I?
Ready?
Oh, never mind. Is it mentioned? Are we going to talk about it later? I didn't do it. Someone did it, but it wasn't
It came
me.
up, and you steered it this way, I think.
Oh, okay. Me or a Jedi?
Do you have a Jet Beardy sound effect ready to go?
Right.
What up?
Well, I've apparently someone has said in the past, I think that Michelob, like the classic Michelob, could do well if it was brought
Bring
back.
that bottle
like
back.
The all with the foil and that unique bottle shape, and it's retro.
Michelob Ultra isn't in that bottle, right? I've never had a
No.
Michelob Ultra.
No, that's in
that
the
I can
classic
remember.
long neck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bring that
Doug,
bottle
was
back.
it talking about bottles or cans? They were trying to say how Corona wasn't able to capture the current magic of Modelo, and for whatever reason, I thought they were talking about cans. But they were talking about the longer Corona bottle couldn't compete with the Modelo and the foil.
Could be both.
I think it's the total package of everything. I think they whatever they were doing advertising wise, marketing campaigns around Modelo was just hitting, and then the same kind of vacation vibe of Corona maybe just began growing tired, and
Gotcha.
Modelo just kind of passed it up, probably starting in like 2014 or 15. I mean, it's been
Yeah.
on a run. It's been a runaway train.
I mean, that's
for a while.
got to be kind of the double-edged sword of leaning too heavily into associating your brand with like moments.
Yeah.
Which like you definitely want to have people connect certain moments, but like if it's only that like find your beach is the only thing people think about,
Then nobody's going to buy it in the fall or winter.
Right.
Like, and then sales fall off a cliff.
Right.
For that time of year.
and it's hard to move away from that too. Like Modelo's whole marketing thing right now is basically just like, here's an inspirational person with their family, and you're like, am I crying at a beer commercial right now? It's about
Fast
like
and the
Tony
Furious.
Gonzalez. Yeah,
It's so funny too, because when I think of drinking Modelo now, I think about it, and when we talk
Family.
about growth, I think about it being in a can,
that's really good.
like not in the bottle anymore.
Yeah, sure.
And then you wonder, it's like we're talking about 12 packs. I mean, we're not, we're
I think
not,
of it in a can.
I don't know.
I,
I don't picture drinking in the bottles.
I wonder how much of the mythos, whether it's made by Corona or not, is about like the clear bottle and the skunkiness and like all of that stuff.
The lime.
Right.
But the lime's been
and the
taken.
lime, yeah.
And now everyone does the lime.
Right. But like, so I wonder how much like, and I don't think that was marketing they did where like our beer stinks because it's in clear bottles, but you like the stink. But I think people just believe that about Corona, that it's different because it's in a clear bottle and it's skunky, and then they just don't get it in the can. Like there's like, it can't be in the can.
Yeah,
You're
I
right.
think it's
I also don't
it's
think
pretty
there's,
And
like-
why not?
They've never had like very aggressive draft sales, at least in,
No.
in Chicago. I'm sure they do on cruise ships or something. But
Maybe. Are we ready to move on to the
stories. Do you want
Yeah.
to take a break? Do we want to just go straight into it?
What do you think?
Up to you.
All right, let's just rock and roll.
Let's rock and roll.
We got a late
Let's
start.
grip it and rip it. Let's go.
Yeah, that's how we live our life.
That's right. You and me yelling grip it and rip it YOLO before every show.
You, me, and Hansel. So
Doing mescaline.
yeah, it's stories of the year,
Yeah.
right? Mm-hmm. Where should we start? The story of the year and it's funny because I think your guys was kind of tied up in story, but
Sure.
How about chronological? What one comes first?
yeah. Well, come on. Then you just say who goes first.
I haven't seen the new one.
Oh, okay. Why don't we? Let's start with you, John. Oh no, wait. John did his beer first, so we can't let him do that.
Yeah, let him go first.
All right,
Let him
fine.
go
I
first.
don't care. Whatever.
He doesn't care. Go for it. What's the story of the year, John?
Well, for me and my circle of friends, it was anchor closing, but I personally think there's a lot more
He's stepping on.
He just like stepping on
he's
toes,
getting your
man.
band. He's stepping on
I
both the
just
hosts.
had to. Man,
Next time, note to self: don't ask him to go first.
Don't
He's
send
on
it
at
out ahead
least.
of time.
You're banned for the rest of the year.
Yeah,
everybody will everybody will say anchor closing.
that's why we
Well, but,
have an outline, so
I
we
think
know
the thing
everyone
that we
else.
Don't send the outline.
I think the thing that we talked about more than anything were the recipe changes for Fat Tire and for Boston Lager. And I think that for those of us who, had been drinking those beers since like the 90s, that's kind of a big deal. It means that things are, well, in trouble.
Yeah,
There's a lot of panic happening.
not a
that are
good
leading
sign.
to-
Yeah,
Yeah, no, there's a lot of panic happening that are leading to people making drastic changes and trying to pass it off as, no, we're going to do that anyway. We're celebrating the brand. Like, no, you're not. I wonder how those beers are doing now. I have no idea about any of that, but I assume they're not doing as well as they would be if they were, just changing those beers to American light lagers or seltzers.
Right.
Like change it to a non-alcoholic version of a beer and call it a victory. At this point, you've totally made it different than what we all kind of see as comfort beers, and I don't know. It feels weird. It feels weird, and it feels like a very desperate, panicked move.
It's interesting. I wonder, I think the big breweries kind of bring on and kill off brands all the time. I was just talking about Michelob. Michelob Lager hasn't been made in decades at this point. And it was a big beer for them for a while. Now, the difference there is Budweiser has been their flagship. It's now not their biggest, but it's not going to get killed off anytime soon, it seems like. Same with Coors. What about Miller, though? Is Miller's old flagship now been killed? It certainly wasn't light. Miller didn't start with a light beer.
No, they still make what is their flagship?
I don't know. I think MGD came on later.
MGD?
I think that came on after Miller Lite, but maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess.
But see, those breweries are doing line extensions,
High Life,
right?
maybe. Yeah, I don't
they're
know.
making an offshoot of the main brand and calling it something different.
Right.
And instead of doing that, these breweries they're torpedoed these mainstays that they had and just changed
That also
them.
launched them. Yeah.
And
yeah.
both of them made basically the same changes, right? They decreased the color of the beer, removed I don't know what the actual malts they were using, but made them paler and made them more like each other, I guess. I don't know. And it's an interesting kind of idea of where craft beer is right now, where both those beers had darker, maltier beers as a kind of symbol of we are different than macro beer, right? We are not Miller Lite. We are not trying to make the lightest beer possible. We have full flavor, and you can see it because this beer is amber in color. And now, 30 years later, that doesn't really matter as much to differentiate by the fact that you can see that this has quote unquote more flavor than a macro beer, and they're just trying to get maximize the amount of sales by paling it up and appreciate it.
I think an interesting thing to me was that those were beers that were created by people who wanted to drink something different, and the beers found an audience. But now they're trying to build beers specifically for an audience. They're trying to model these things to fit a specific demographic rather than the beer just being itself and finding its audience.
Right. Well, that's a maturation of craft beer in general, right? Like
Kind of
every story of every brewery up until probably 6-7 years ago was we brew what we like, and then it's like, and then it's either and fuck you if you're like one of the more aggressive breweries, or like, and we hope you like it.
Right.
So
I'm curious to find out which of those two approaches has more staying power.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
What's up, Doug?
I think what they did to take like a more neutral take on it is, they looked at this. They have this IP that's very valuable, but has been declining for at least probably 8 years from when they did this. But still very large, still larger than most craft breweries. Just the Fat Tire sales alone, forget everything else they make. But what they did in doing this is they basically prioritized the customer they don't have over the customer that they still do have, which is still large, still significant, just not nearly what it was 8 years, 12 years prior. And when you do what they did, you never, ever, you cannot win in the short term. They know that. Like, you're not going to short-term win. So, like, whether this works out or not, it'll be like, not to give the not fun answer, but like you will not know. but they are very much so turning their back on people that still drink Fat
Yeah.
Tire because none of those people are happy.
Right.
So
with the
why not
change.
release a new beer
That-
and keep?
Yeah,
the
that's
old
what I was
beer?
going to get to. Like, you'd think they'd side by side introduce a Fat Tire Gold, let's say, have them sit next to each other, be able to market both simultaneously as Fat Tire, but let people try both and see which one sticks.
Right.
And then eventually
think-
kill off one of them. Like, that seems like a little more methodical way to do it, but
Yeah, I think that's a really weird approach to take where you're leveraging this brand equity that has its audience in order to, I guess, turn your back on this particular audience and try to win over a different audience. Like, well, at that point, yeah,
Switch. Yeah.
make your brand to appeal to that new audience wholesale, and if you want to, cancel Fat Tire, you could do that. You could get rid of that brand if it isn't performing for you, but don't then try to leverage this brand equity that hasn't won over this new audience ever, and try to win them over with a recipe change. Like it's a really weird marketing and branding move.
But is the new audience even aware of the equity? You
I
know,
don't think they are.
Right. Or do they care?
And what I keep thinking about the romantic fan of beer as a culture and beer and like the world we've existed in, or I've existed in the last 10 years of loving this or even longer. The separation of the IP of a brand and the actual way that the liquid they put in that branded thing tastes is sad and disappointing. Like, I know it's smart and it's the way that you can optimize or maximize the equity of the IP and the sales if it can connect to a broader audience. But the disconnect of that stinks. Like, it's sad. Ultimately, as someone who's a fan of the mythos and the ethos of these places, or at least what we were told the mythos and the ethos of these places, like Boston Beer Company. For God's sake, the guys like my dad brewed this on the stove or whatever, and it's like I don't think he would have been like, we should lighten it up a little bit to get to 7 million barrels or whatever they're going to make. And it's further like we've talked about this ad nauseum on this show, but it's further just like we were sold a bill of goods for a lot of these companies, and like the separation of that, the idea of the image of this thing from what's actually in the bottle is proof that they no longer believe in the same things they used to believe in, or at least that what they told us they believed in.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you can certainly make an argument for that, and I think it is telling that both of them happened in the same time frame. I think there are some things unique going against Fat Tire compared to Boston Lager, but I think it's the same word may be associated with both of them, which is amber, which is like the least cool thing.
It'll come back.
That has to be the next thing that we get on.
When
is
Michelob,
amber
when
ales.
Michelob Ultra comes back in the original bottle,
Michelob
and
Lager,
Pizza Hut
not
brings
Ultra.
back the free pan pizza when you read 100 books in the summer,
Right.
like, and your dad's drinking a Michelob Ultra, like we're gonna bring back the amber ale.
Yeah.
Just snacking on a Pizzone with your
You know it,
Boston
dude.
Lager.
You know it.
You know what?
Bring back the salad bar while we're at it. Let's go.
Yeah. Let's. I think you were right. I think we should take a short break. I'm getting worried about the cameras too. We have to hit record on or hit stop on them. Make sure they're
I hope
okay.
we record on them too.
Yeah,
That'd be disappointing.
So we
Catch
take
on
we'll
fire.
take a quick break, 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and finish up the year-end episode of the Beer Temple podcast.
And we're back. Welcome back to the Beer Temple podcast. We are doing the year-end show, talking about our favorite beers of the year, or the beers of the year. Not necessarily our favorite beers
Now
of the
stories
year.
of the year,
And now stories of the year.
and
You're with your co-host Chris Quinn,
yeah,
Nostra Douglas, Doug Valecki, Beer Aficionado, Beer Cruncher, Jude De La Rosa, De La Rocha, La Rose, the butcher of
Jack
the
LaRosa, you got
butcher
it.
of Hop Street, Sweeney Todd of Citra Hops, and we have John Rubio, a real podcast host.
oh
Yeah.
there you go.
The chugginator,
Yeah.
the chug thumper.
The chug
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 thumper.
thumping.
Yeah.
The international mega hit from
Chuggdawumba.
Chugbawumba.
That didn't work at all.
The emotional bear hug.
I was gonna say the emotional hand jobber, but but I won't. But I won't.
Crying during the hand job.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Both
cry
of you.
because I'm moved by it.
Yeah,
Right.
It's so
The
beautiful.
beauty of it.
The beauty.
It's like in that movie where you see the shopping cart kind
Yeah.
of flying in the corner.
Shopping cart.
I'm sorry, the shopping
The bag. The bag.
The shopping bag.
Nobody
I
else
think
thought
you're thinking of
I thought
Twister.
it was-
Yeah.
Yeah.
John, I like how you say moved. Can you say moved again?
moved.
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 Perfect.
Thank you.
Moved. That was great.
Oh yeah.
It's my partial Austin, Texas, partial border Mexican accent.
Nice.
Love it. Moved.
Moved.
Well, I just said we have to
Love
keep it moving, and then I totally we didn't even get past reintroducing everybody. But
start
so we
talking
got
about
our
hand jobs
beers of the year. John just went
For his story of the year.
for story of the year. Sorry,
yeah.
yes. So, Mike, why don't you go next?
My story of the year was stepped on by John. The
It's
same
okay.
way I had him step on your beer of the year.
Yeah.
It's Anchor closing.
Yeah.
And
Why is that the story of the year for you?
Anchor specifically, I think, is the first time that we see a really formally robust, impactful American craft beer brand that
Yeah, as you put it, a legacy.
a legacy beer brand that just went away. And there's a lot of talk about coming back. That I'll get into that a little bit, but like usually they're like, oh, we're selling, or you're spinning it off, or something's going on. Like, but this is the first time it's been like, nah, we're just done with it.
Right.
We'd rather take the tax write off than sell it to someone, or
Sure.
and it's a unwieldy, weird infrastructure brewing wise. It's not worth it to run this anymore.
Right.
And that's very sad and very much legitimately the end of an era, and the end feels like the sunset of something.
Yes.
And then there's also the level of it's might not be dead, because it was one of the union is still trying to raise $2.5 million to buy the brand rights to revive it in some way.
Sure. I mean, when I saw that story, this is really bad, but I'll say
Chris
it all.
hates labor.
Yeah. No, it's not that. It's when they're talking about like the employees want to bring back Anchor. Now there's like different pictures that I could see with that I would associate like different like levels of hope. And like 3 employees in like black tees and like
They're
and
wearing
I'm
their
making
union
it out
jackets.
and like I don't know.
I've seen the
And
picture you've seen.
with like the scowl, tough guy, like mean mugging the camera, is not the one that fills me with the most hope.
You thought that the Teamsters that were in the union at Anchor were going to be suits?
They're Teamsters.
I mean, that's
truck-
typically the unions that work in breweries. I don't know. Maybe they're longshoremen because it's
Sure.
it's,
Anyway,
San Francisco.
no, it's not about what I thought. It's just it's like how no, it's not about.
That's what we were talking about, though. How that picture made you feel.
No,
You're saying you thought there was no hope.
Yeah,
right. No,
that's a feeling.
so I
And then
guess
you said something about my mother.
right. Then I said something about your mom.
And then hand jobs.
No, it's no. I'm sorry. It's not about what I thought about like
moved.
what the not about what I felt. It's not about what I thought. Is what I meant to say about the what the Teamsters looked like. It's more what my guesses of what a successful attempt and the longevity of it will be like. If I saw a bunch of, boring looking, entrepreneur people there, I'd be like, all right, maybe it's got a shot. If I see people mean mugging the camera, I'm like, cool. All right, I'll wait and see how that goes. I mean, that's how I felt.
Yeah.
That's all I'm
talking
going to say
Well,
about it. Yeah.
similar conclusion, but different reasons. My thing was like, I got married in San Francisco. I dated my wife long distance there. I've been to the Anchor Brewery many times and seen how like every restaurant in San Francisco has the beer on tap. I have like a kind of special love of it, but I can't imagine it. It's been on the decline for years and years. I don't understand how you even like level it off without the brewery being in San Francisco as a destination, as a place where tourists go, build that connection to it, and then go home to other places in California and then buy it on the shelf because I went to the Anchor Brewery. I went on that tour, was awesome. That place was crazy. When you can't do that anymore, how does it do anything other than continue to go down? Yes, if you buy the brand for like $2 million and make it in Berkeley and then ship it around the state, can you sell enough that's worth buying for $2 million? Perhaps. But nothing like it ever was or even was when it stopped.
Right, it's
probably.
like Ballantine. You see like Ballantine beer now.
Yeah, it becomes this. It becomes like a Pabst brand, like this kind of like nostalgia brand in a way. But I don't see how it grows without the Anchor Brewing to go to. And it sounds like anywhere it would go to be brewed would be someone else's brewery that is already decked out, not as the new Anchor Brewing. It's Cellar Maker, Rare Barrel. It's some other place,
Right?
Sierra Nevada, and you don't go there to visit Anchor. You go there to visit the main brewery. So they're buying. It goes from being a brewery at best, probably, to being a brand, and then I don't see how you do anything but get smaller and smaller. Could it still be enough to warrant being on the store shelves at Bevmo? Sure,
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
But the mystique just kind of seems like it can't improve. It has to just like keep getting smaller and smaller without the heart.
And I think that they're in a strange position where that real estate is so expensive where the brewery is.
Yep.
But the city itself is in a very
Bad place.
very bad place, a very high state of tumult, and the crime rate is actually quite bad. It just doesn't make sense.
And it doesn't make sense to be running trucks that are
Right. Well, Chris and I tried to go to the tap room the day before.
But the day before the announcement.
Yeah.
And it was just closed, and we're like, what? And even the person working there was like, it should be open.
Yeah, it
Like,
wasn't.
it's not.
Yeah.
You work here.
I just started walking in like through open gates, trying to be like, maybe I don't know where we're at.
Yeah. Well,
Was this the same year that they announced they were pulling out of markets, or was that a 2022 story?
That was like a month before.
yeah, it was like just
Oh, that
after.
was?
Yeah.
They were trying to simplify the balance sheet, I think, and simplify their distribution agreements in hopes of selling. And so they were floating it by potential buyers. And then I think there was still just too much baggage. They couldn't close the deal. So I think they were close. I think they were talking to the Sierra Nevadas, the Russian Rivers, and all these other possible buyers for the brand, the whole package or just the brand. And then I think everybody backed out once they got enough of a look under the hood of what they were inheriting. Everybody came to the same conclusion. This just right now does not make sense.
And it is like a weird idiosyncratic brewing process for that beer that isn't impossible to replicate by any means. But part of the magic is that it's made in these like weird, shallow, low vats, and in this like place where where the brewery's been forever, and it's this like steampunk Willy Wonka thrown together.
I feel kind
Chocolate
of
River
similar
kind of
to
vibe.
Anchor as I do about Phantom and Phantom looking for someone to buy them or something
Sure.
like that. It's like it's probably best for it. I mean, outside of like the lives of employees and stuff like that, which is important, but it's like it's probably best for it to go because it's not going to be anywhere near what it was. It'll just be a brand then, which is fine. I mean,
Right.
that's okay.
And that might mean a lot to the people that are in that union and just having it alive for what it might mean a lot for San Franciscans to keep it living, but it definitely won't mean that
Perhaps.
much here.
Yeah.
But maybe that's not their point. But
Jude, what was your story of 2023?
We went to a beer fest in Minnesota. We poured at the Minnesota Craft Beer Fest, and we're friends with a brewery out there called Modest, and they had like a like a 3 milligram, a 5 milligram, and a 10 milligram. It was like a THC water or THC seltzer called Melt. And then we went to our friends over at Black Stack, and they were there was a wonky law that got passed in Minnesota where marijuana like accidentally was legalized, and then eventually they did pass it where it was legal across the board, but some type of language allowed for like this low key legalization of marijuana. So anyways, we were talking with them and they said, yeah, we're about to get on this like Delta 9 like liquid, and all we have to do is run water through our heat exchanger and add the Delta 9. And they said, oh yeah, Modest, that's like 40% of their sales. And wow. So sorry, I'm burying the lead. My story was kind of like the increased conversation about non-beer products, or what did I call it? Like outside beer, or what did I call it?
Non-beer or beyond beer.
Beyond beer. I heard like Dave Thibodeau from Ska say beyond beer. So whether it's whether it's like hop water, or whether it's hard seltzer, or whether it's seltzer, or whether it's THC waters, my radar, and I've just become a lot more aware about how much more chatter. And this has been happening for 2 years or 3 years.
Yeah, people have been talking about this like breweries becoming beverage companies,
Yeah. So that's my story. Go on.
I mean, I think we had Edmar on last week, and he brought, a flat of cans. I don't think he brought a single beer.
He didn't bring any, no.
He
brought water.
He brought unholy water.
Some with THC and some without, and a coffee with THC.
And an apple shrub with 25 milligrams of THC per 12-ounce serving. Because he was trying to kill you.
Right.
And we had a major development in Illinois in, I think, November, which was not anything in Springfield, our capital, but confidence was gained enough by a good-sized distributor who was willing to bring in THC brands. Now, these are hemp-derived Delta 9, which falls in the gray area of, is this legal or not? They're not explicitly illegal. They're not spelled out as legal either. And so distributors, big distributors have been unwilling to touch this because of the lack of federal clarity. They don't want to risk their bigger pie for dabbling in this space. But that changed, and a good-sized distributor here, Glun's, they brought in like 4 well-known THC brands that are like, I think they're all sparkling waters. Maybe some of them are something like a lemonade or soda, who knows. But I know of some sparkling water ones. They brought in a bunch of brands, and
we have one of them.
The biggest wine superstore was willing to give them space. Bottle shops are now giving them space. So they are now on store shelves. They are not...
at dispensaries or
something. Yeah. They've always been able to be sold at dispensaries, but now they have like true access to market. A big leap was taken. There's more leaps still to be taken. If the Bud and Miller Coors distributors start bringing them in as well, then it's game on. But so far they haven't. But it's a major step. So yeah, they had always been available to be sold in a dispensary, but you're really limiting your audience when that's the only place to buy them. Now we could see them at places like Whole Foods. Benny's,
you could have them at a. I mean, you could have them anywhere. You could have them in a laundromat. You could have them anywhere, right? I mean, you don't need a special license at all to do it, which could be a huge disruptor. If I got to go to a liquor store to get this, or I got to get this, only these people can deliver.
I think that will change. I think
it will, but it isn't yet.
Yeah, these moves will force them to act so that there can be an over 21 or over 18 limit on them.
Yeah. Right now there isn't. I mean, it's like Wild West.
Yeah.
Interesting. No, that's a good one, Jude.
Can I go next?
Go.
Mine is semi-related. My story of the year was the deal between Anheuser-Busch and Tilray, where Anheuser-Busch kind of waved the white flag on some of their craft beer buying spree from, call it 8 years prior, including Blue Point, 10 Barrel, years before that, Red Hook and Widmer Brothers, And then the funny one was Shock Top, which was originally just like a in-house created brand to compete with Blue Moon. And they had, I think that came about in like probably 2006, something like that.
Yeah, it's been around a while.
And so they held it 17 years. They made it, and then they sold it to Tilray. So Tilray is a Canadian-based cannabis company who previously bought Sweetwater, which made, it was just fascinating to me when it happened. That was either a year or maybe 2 years prior, where because Sweetwater had already had all these IPAs branded as a 420 series. And more recently, they have an IPA called Gummy Double IPA. They have one called Half a Gummy Double IPA. And they even have hemp. They have beers with hemp in them as well. I forget the brands of those. So some of those were post-Tilray acquisition, but they were like a brand that was both like outdoorsy fishing, kind of like Busch Light, but then also 420. Those were like their two shticks. So when I hear of this cannabis company, who at the time I'd never even heard of, buying them, I was like, oh, that's fascinating. A Canadian cannabis company buying a pretty big, like top 10 craft brewery. That was massive. Then they bought Green Flash, who we know had traded hands a few times, and then that came with Alpine. And now they went on this buying spree and bought up all these Anheuser-Busch brands. Some people reacted to this with like, oh, because of the Bud Light thing, calling back to that, like they must have needed cash. So that's why they sold these. I think it was like maybe $85 million for the total of all these. So I don't think it was because Anheuser-Busch parent company needed the cash. I think they probably
didn't need the $85 million.
I think they probably wanted to wipe their hands of some of these brands that they just didn't see any rise in. They saw probably likely a continued fall, so they probably just wanted to wipe their hands of them. And sure they get some cash to them. I don't know what $85 million is in the broader Anheuser-Busch balance sheet, but it's not nothing. But it's I don't think that was the motivator. I think they were just done with these and just didn't see any rise in them. And Tilray is fascinating to me as a cannabis company on this spending spree. They've picked up a lot of brands. They also bought one called Montauk in New York that I think was more just like kismet of like a major executive there happening to like live near it and getting to know the owners there or something.
Yeah, it's all the way out on Long Island.
Yeah, like it wasn't like they kind of searched the country for the perfect craft brewery. I think there was just a relationship that led to that sale. But they've kind of acquired their own out of nowhere, like pretty just interesting portfolio of craft breweries with, circling back to Jude's point, the legalization or now the playing in the gray area at least of THC is, you know, I believe this company wants to be a CPG company and just have all kinds of businesses, including craft beer. But I think they also love the crossover that craft beer will have to exactly the example Jude gave from Minnesota of these craft breweries have a natural extension into a line of THC drinks, including even Shock Top. Like crazy, but at least you know, millions of people know what Shock Top is, and all of a sudden, if there's a THC version in a year and a half,
he takes off the sunglasses and his eyes are all bloodshot, man.
He's got Visine. What are you talking about?
I think they're also expressed that they're going to continue to acquire craft breweries. I believe they recently said they were looking in the Great Lakes and Texas for.
More interesting to me, they at the like Brewbound talk last week, their CEO or one of their top dogs said that they get anywhere from 2 to 3 calls a day from craft breweries calling them saying, hey, do you want to buy us? Which is scary as well. Nothing in conflict with what you said.
For $1 billion. That's still the going rate, right?
Yeah, right.
So this is fascinating to me on so many angles. The fact that Anheuser-Busch is kind of giving up on this many brands all at once, the fact that there's this Canadian cannabis company on a spending spree, and then I was going to tie into exactly what Jude said. All this dovetails into the slow, sort of, somewhat legalization or acceptance of THC in beverages. So,
Tilray, very interesting. Really strikes me as someone with a lot of money that was given to them, and now they're just
biding their time.
Yeah, figure out what to
do. Real quick question. Doug, he was saying he got 2 or 3 phone calls a day. Now, these were from for people that wanted to sell because they want money, or they wanted to sell because they're interested in like being associated with cannabis?
I think they
Or
want
both.
out. I think they want to walk away from their problems.
Right on. Yeah, that's what
That
I
makes
thought.
sense. I think they're in a bad spot. Maybe they're not having fun anymore. Maybe they were having fun running their brewery, and now things are really hard, and now they're like, shit.
Yeah.
Here, this company's interested in buying breweries, so they're picking up the phone. That's what I think it is.
In that quote, did he try to kind of position it like they wanted to be associated with the overall kind of umbrella brand, and that's what it means underneath? Or
Probably. I didn't see that part. I just kind of saw the snippet of this from in a few
Cool.
different places. So
I was thinking about
Right on.
that too, Jude. Like, but to me, that's probably 90% what Doug's saying, and 10% like,
Sure.
we have a weed pun beer, like something like that. Like maybe they'll want us.
The TTB made us even change this
Maybe,
label. 'Cause it was
maybe
too
they'll
much
want
like a weed pun.
bong ripper, double dry hopped,
Now you got
Cold black
stoner metal
IPA.
bands are trying to sell out to
Right.
Tilray.
right.
the fascinating one.
That's right, Mike.
Just to play armchair quarterback would be like, what if they bought Lagunitas off of Heineken? What if Heineken was done? And there's no better like cannabis fit than a brand completely built around
Undercover
Right,
shutdown.
this whole thing. It's like that would actually, if that happened, I'd be like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that'd be a full circle.
Yeah,
Like,
nobody'd be outraged. No, there'd be no backlash to
Like-
that transaction. Everybody'd be like, well, that makes sense.
yeah.
that's what they call synergy, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's
They'd bring that couch back. There'd be a whole advertising campaign about the couch.
up and to the right.
That's the fat coin.
All right. Well, I guess I'm next. So,
Let's finish on a positive note.
Let's finish on a positive note. So I put down on mine brewery closings, and then that I think is obviously like for the worlds that we all live in. It's pretty obvious. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot
I
of
think the
them.
number in Illinois is at 32, I think, this calendar year.
But that isn't really my story of the year. I mean, I think that's maybe like an element to it. But to me, the story of the year is really like an unwritten story in relation to that. And it is this, as I feel it, is like pervasive worry,
It's gloom.
anxiety, gloom. There's a pall over things. Because a couple weeks ago, I came on and was talking about like the stresses and stuff that's going on, and I've had, I think, as many people, I won't say more than ever, but as many people I can remember, I've had multiple more than two, like several
3.
brewery owners reach out to me and say that they are feeling kind of the same things that they could relate. I had someone just come up to me at the Metro closing and give me a big hug and ask me how I was and kind of relate some stuff to me, and I was like, wow, like, okay, this is a thing. And I hope in a future episode to kind of like talk to some people about this a little bit more, because to me that is so different even the second half of this year than anything I've ever experienced. Is like this fear, and that to me is kind of the story of the year for me in this industry. And it's not just brewers, like everyone who's in the industry. It's still there. That arm is still there. People are scared, and people don't know what's going to end, how much worse it's going to get. If it's ever going to get better. I had someone ask me yesterday, like, is it ever going to get better? Are we going to get to retire before this thing gets better? And I was joking, and I was like, no, but I'm a pessimist, I said, and I just kind of like walked away. I was joking, but people were coming up to me, and maybe I don't think that person actually even heard the podcast, but it's not being talked about publicly very much. But it's like you get people like, off mic and stuff like that. That is the story that I think keeps coming up again and again.
Yeah.
You hear they're down. You hear they're down. You hear this. You hear that. Just like several, 5, 6, 7 years ago, whenever it was, everyone was talking about like, oh, they're putting in a 30 barrel. They're putting in a 50 barrel. They're putting in a 15 barrel. Only 15 barrel. Like everyone's expanding.
You got to buy a 30 barrel system,
right?
If you're gonna grow.
Right,
forever.
and how that was the talk. It was talk expansion. Boom, boom, boom. It's like it's kind of like that now. And everyone seems to be kind of, rightfully so, cagey about it. And it's also like, super stressful. And it's going to make people like just, as Doug said, maybe they're not having fun anymore. It's not fun to kind of be like that,
right.
Yeah. So that to me is the story of really even the past 6 months, I think, for me.
Yeah. And there's like so much like self-mythologizing about like when you're in a booming industry that you are really good at something, right? And then if the industry itself turns down, you also then take that same thing. You're like, well, I suck at this now. Like I've dealt with that a lot where like it's been a struggle for the last 4 years of like, we've been growing, but it's like slow and small. And how much of me being like, you don't actually know what you're doing. You don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know this industry at all.
Sure.
And I can't imagine I'm alone in that.
No.
Of people thinking they know what was going on, and then kind of not the rug being pulled out from under you, but like a very different market climate.
Well, that's the psychology of any market.
Right.
Like it's like when this would not happen to Fatcoin, but like Bitcoin, for example,
only goes up to the right, baby.
Bitcoin bottoms out at wherever it was when Sam Bankman-Fried is arrested, and everybody's like, Bitcoin is done, this is going to zero, and anybody who owned it has their head in the sand, and then all of a sudden, a year and a half later, it's back. Like it's the psychology of the market. Craft beer is going through it. Craft beer was part of a hype cycle that, I've written about this recently where, when it was on the up and up, the expectations were high and they're always too high. And that's when a lot of people got in and a lot of people started businesses that could only be supported while it was on that high. And it's the most obvious thing to say, market saturation. There are now too many breweries that a leveling off, a decline in the industry can handle. And we are losing a lot of breweries as a result. We're going to lose some more. And then eventually the ones that can survive that are probably the ones that are going to stick around when other kind of conditions that have nothing to do with beer, but just have to do with general economy and confidence and purchasing power and all that, come back a little bit. Then all of a sudden spending goes up. People are less sensitive to these higher prices that craft beers are, that are all $1 or $2 more than they were a year or two before. That all comes back, and it's not as big as it was in 2015, which is what we all kind of agree was like the peak of hype. So it's not necessarily going to get back to that level of expectation, that level of investment, but it gets back to a steady state of expectations, where expectations are kind of level with reality. Whereas expectations far surpassed reality from especially 2014, 15, 16, when all the excess money went into the 30-barrel system, the tap room in a market like a city a few states away, all those satellite. Remember on this show probably 7 years ago, you were talking about what's the deal with all these satellite tap rooms? Like that was like a big thing for a while. Those are all now closed. Like, what's happening is not uncommon. It's just, it's like the first time for so many of us who are doing this for the first time. But if you look back to similar industries, similar cycles, or even things that have nothing to do with even a product, You see that, and you read about
The economy
about
at large.
It's just how things work.
Right.
We're feeling now how people felt in 2009 about their 401k, which got cut literally in half in a matter of months. That's how everybody's feeling confidence-wise in the potential for beer. And it's not that it will go up to where it was instantly, but it will come back.
Right.
And we're not necessarily at the bottom either. We could get a little bit worse before we get better, but it will get better.
And that same human instinct to be like, well, we're always going to grow at double-digit growth is now on the other side, where we're like, well, we're always going to be down 20% year over year, so we might as well just do we just sell to Tilray now? You know, yeah. I mean, I'm still opening a brewery. Like I opened a brewery, but we're still working towards getting our own actual physical space with the tap room and stuff. And I mean, maybe I'm just a fool, but I think now is actually a good time to, if you can do it intelligently, invest in your brewery and keep moving forward. Like, you know, there aren't a lot of other options.
I think it's a pretty natural feeling. And I think that, you know, what we've been in the industry, you know, give or take, 10 years, on either side of that. And I think especially during, 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, Chris, you brought it up about just kind of like everyone's lifestyle nowadays, and bars being open until 2, and now are they open until midnight, or now are they open until 10, or now are they open until 9 or 8? What time are people going home at? Mm-hmm. Same thing, like very specific examples. But even like on the Steal This Beer podcast, they're talking about.
You haven't been on that, have you? Have you been on that?
It's a national
different.
It's national.
That's a national podcast. But wait, but
just because it's in New York doesn't mean it's national.
New Jersey, don't they? Yeah.
It's rude.
Yep, you got it. Yeah.
All right, God, we got to ban everyone from this
podcast.
All right, everyone's banned.
It's a friend of the program, right?
Rubio's out for the rest of the year.
You were trying to have
out for the rest of the year.
Jude was trying to have a legit point.
Yeah, sorry, Jude.
Are we supposed to like blur out the saying of
bleep
other
out
podcasts?
Steal This Beer podcast.
No, not at all. Just the ones Doug goes on.
Dre Day video, or it's just a White Sox hat.
Right.
No, I'm joking. They said it too. They're trying to get around the idea of like what's happening in New York and New Jersey. Like, it used to be that people would go and they'd grab a bite to eat, and then they'd go out and they'd have a beer, and they'd have another beer, and they'd hang out, and they'd keep it going. And they're like, now like everyone's mopping the floors at like 9 o'clock or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very specific example, but I think we come from a time when we see, packed tap rooms all the time for years on years on years. And then when we don't see that type of energy and that type of vitality, then the gears start spinning in your head. So I think that's a natural feeling. And Doug, like you said too, Mike, like you said, like to me, that's probably just evolution, right? And like, in just like the cyclical nature of like being in business where things change and then you have to respond to them and you have to figure out a way, because things don't always stay the same. But I feel all those feelings are very natural. And I think it comes to, we probably saw one of the highest points right as we started falling in love with so many aspects of craft beer.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's not natural, by the way, or that it's not just a normal trend that was always going to happen. I'm just saying that it's painful, hard, negative, bad. These things, like, to live it is and to watch other people living it. To watch Metropolitan go out of business and watch the brewers come in here every day, and I mean, now I can say it after the fact, like, we all saw it coming, but like us here, like, we saw it coming because they would come here and blow off steam after their shifts and stuff like that. Like, like, we saw this stuff happening, and it's not fun to watch it happen, I guess, and it affects you. So even though it's natural, it's natural for animals to starve to death, but like, it still sucks.
Right, nature's metal.
Sure.
Dude.
Yeah, right.
And I wasn't saying that
metal.
you were saying that
awesome.
it was unnatural at all. But to your point, like, how it affects us or affects us all. And I guess it matters like where we're coming at it from, and how much skin we have in the game, and how many hours in the day we're putting in towards it, and how old we are, and I guess also kind of given like what our own individual situations are as well.
Yeah, my dad has this saying he would always say to me is that positive cash flow hides all wounds in your business operation.
Oh,
But there's also
yeah.
a vibe of it that's positive vibes hide a lot of that too. Like craft beer was heavily built on like positive vibes, allowing you to like underpay employees, and now a lot of those employees are like, well, this isn't fun anymore. Like,
Right.
Maybe I'll just go back to my IT job, or like so. There's
Sure.
a lot of like when it's not all up and to the right, jokingly, but it changes the way people feel about it too, which then, a lot of it's P&L based that you're not making as much money as you used to, but then you're also not feeling the same way about it, and that compounds.
Something I think a lot about is, there's two breweries that I'm not going to name because I don't want to make them feel bad.
I'll
if they
name it
happen to
for 'em.
listen.
Was and Hop
Joke.
Butcher?
Yeah.
Both of these are like top 50, top 100 breweries that
Is was
have
Hop Butcher.
good reputations. That I went to their tap rooms for the first time in 2023, and I was very excited because I love their beer, and I still love their beer, and enjoyed everything I had there. But when I walked into both places, I got the same feeling. And I walked in, having never even seen a photo before, but walked in and was like, ugh. And I was like, ugh, this just feels like 15 years ago. And it just like wasn't exciting. I felt like I walked into the past, and I was like,
Which can be
And-
good,
and not
but
in the-
not in a
can
good
be,
way.
and it just like got me thinking, and it
Like
got
when
me
you go to Anchor, you want to walk into the
it got me
past.
challenging our own taproom revolution of just like, oh, do people think that because this is very similar to how it's always been, is this just getting stale? When I go out, what would I want to see? What would get me? Because I brought this up, Mike, because of you talking about the energy level. And when I walked into the room, I felt the energy level like
Right.
die, at least inside of me.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, it's this scene that you've seen over and over again, and you've done so many times. And I was just like, how do we make this feel new and different again? And it could be a different answer for everybody. And I don't mean something that's fake either, but like
Right.
just like what makes you walk in and go, oh, all right.
Oh,
This
cool.
is a fun place
Nice.
to be.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is not the vibe of a lot of brewery tap rooms right now. It's
No.
just you walk
No.
in and it can be a little bit of like a,
Yeah.
and
you-
so I don't know the answer, but I
Right.
like I've been thinking that's just something on my mind of like what can make that pop when you walk in, and I don't mean like a DJ playing necessarily,
Right.
but just like what can bring that energy level up, because right now I feel it's very down.
Well, and craft beer, like by nature of it being a very ascendant thing for a really long time, didn't have to think about a lot of that stuff. And not necessarily like it's hospitality or what, but just like a lot of brewery tap rooms, I'm not saying anyone in particular, were just like, we make the beer, you're welcome. And like people would come in to have it. And that's not the vibe anymore.
Yeah.
And
It's less about coming for the beer, it's coming for something else because you like good beer.
Right.
And it's like, what is the something else?
Yeah.
And the something else can be a lot of things. But that's what I feel like we need to focus more on, is the other draw besides geeking out over beer. I feel like that might have topped out.
Yeah.
The amount of people that are going to geek out over the beer. So you need
that's
them
like
to-
the deepest level experience,
Yeah.
right? But people are going to come and walk in the door for the first time for a bunch of different reasons. That we
Yeah.
got to figure out how to get them.
Well, we have a little bit of time left, and there were some predictions made in the past. Also, if there's anyone who wants to make some predictions, that's fine. Also, but yeah, we made some predictions. People made some predictions for 2023. I'm not gonna say who they were. They might have names similar to ours. But Doug, was there any in particular, or was there a bunch that you wanted to go through? Kudos to Doug. He went back and listened to the predictions and wrote them down. So
I had a year of pent up rage.
Oh, good.
So
He went to Driveline for podcasting.
Either that or I'd been misquoted by you so many times in the past that I wanted to get it
Sure,
right. One
And
or
me.
the other.
No way.
I didn't,
Chris also
actually, I
included
didn't
them
say
on,
that.
on the what's it called on the outline for today. I feel like I didn't know if that was a part of today's
Doug
podcast
did that.
or
That
if
wasn't
it
me.
That was,
To be fair,
that
I
was
co-host the show, and I texted them too to be like, "Are we doing that today?"
No, there was one on there that I thought just when I went back and listened to it, and I was wrapping Christmas presents and wanted to I threw it on, so I was having a good time listening to it. A lot of fatheads talk, more than you'll ever remember how much fatheads was talked about in that episode a year ago.
That tracks.
Anyway, there was one where Chris's prediction was, and again, this is January 2023. Chris said there's going to be a ton of brand extensions. And I said, not challenging him, but I said, there's a ton of brand extensions right now. Like, I feel like we're just swimming in brand extensions. So what do you mean? And I wasn't like, because I agreed with him, but in terms of being a prediction. And I said, and then I brought up, like, do you see this as like an IPA only thing where it's just like everybody's going to be doing the Voodoo Ranger thing? And then Chris said, no, I think it's going to go beyond IPA. And I think like summer seasonals are going to be getting into the brand extension game. And then that made me think of one of the bigger like kind of brand announcements, which was Bell's Oberon deciding to go year round and turning into Oberon Solstice, or what was it called? Eclipse. And that was just like a dead on thing of what I would say is the biggest summer seasonal, perhaps. That you nailed, that they decide, and you specifically said, like, I think they might take some summer seasonals year round by making like a winter version of, and that's exactly what Bell's, one of the biggest breweries, did. And I thought that was an astute prediction. So
Wasn't mine. That was Chris Quinobi's. But I'll take the credit for that.
I can't wait to hang out with him in a few weeks.
Yeah.
That guy's also had a year-long ban from the show. He hasn't come on.
Yeah. No, he's banned. He's a bad guy.
Yeah.
But
I was at a
You
Myers
chose the
in,
dark side.
predictions
Michigan,
take is
they line extended breakfast stouts.
really
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah,
at
they had
Founders.
so many variants of breakfast stout.
Brunch stout, lunch stout, dinner stout,
Well, now you're getting now you're going to get
fourth
C
meal
and D
stout.
from
The collab with-
Maine.
Oh yeah, that's
Maine's
right.
going to go after you for that.
Fourth meal stout collaboration with Taco Bell.
Right. Exactly.
Midnight snack stout.
I mean,
Fourth meal stout.
Yeah, that's what. There we go.
um,
It has Baja Blast in it.
let me say there were some other ones that Obi Chris didn't get quite right.
Like
You said cold IPA was going to die. I don't think it's
Yeah.
I don't think it's that.
I said that there would be a black pills.
Who said it?
What?
Who said what?
I said there would be a
Okay.
black pills
Not doing that anymore.
sub-style resurgence. I said the next big resurgence style was going to be thiol
Lager, right?
beers. No, thiol beers. Someone said.
These were predictions by Chris Binks.
Yeah, exactly.
After you predicted the thiol beers, we did a whole bunch of possible thigh pun names.
Ooh.
Like extra crispy was one.
Oh, I like that.
funny.
I like
It's a
that.
cold thiol beer.
I like it.
Crystalline.
Yes. What's up? Oh, extra crystal. Oh,
Not that Jude was on another podcast
This
or
is
anything, but he was
inside
talking about
baseball
things
right now.
being
yeah, that
crystalline.
was extra crispy lean.
It's a purple one.
We also guessed the next BCBS variants. You want to go through what those were? So, Mike, you said there was going to be
I know
a
what John said.
Portillo's. Well, he's guessing for next year. So,
Yeah,
John, next what?
It was actually through conversations with my friends. I had some predictions and I added
Got
them
it.
to the list for fun.
Yeah, he said his prediction is the one that tastes like the shelf it rots on. Ooh,
That's some good outsiders perspective.
Portillo's chocolate cake collab is what you said.
That's right.
Mike. Mm-hmm. I said.
Oh, Mike's going old school.
I said.
That's what I said last year.
I said single barrel BCBS. That has not happened yet.
They do that. They definitely do that.
No, but not
But not as, like, in a
release.
release.
No.
That's a good guess, though.
The Third Eye said that they were going to rekindle variants from the vault, which 100% he nailed. That's exactly what they did with half the releases almost or so this year. Doug, you said a triple barrel. Don't think that happened.
Not yet.
No.
Sometimes Mr. Douglas is just too many years ahead.
That's
Too
right.
many. That's the thing for
It's hard
Yeah.
to only
We
be
gotta go to
dialed in
Anchorage for
1
that.
year ahead.
Yeah.
exactly. Same with me. You know.
Yeah.
So many years ahead. For that.
Yeah, him.
One
yeah.
day cold
Thank
IPA
you.
won't be cool.
Yeah. So I thought
Not
that
this year.
I thought that was pretty interesting. But yeah, some takes that didn't take quite yet. I think they're either multiverse or
They happen in one of them.
yeah, in some universe all the takes were dead on.
Yeah.
I want a variant that's aged in the pipes that they used in
Ooh.
2016 that infected 4 of their variants.
Ooh.
It's
Oh,
held
wow.
it's held in the tanker truck that they think they got that from for
That's
the entire
awesome.
for the entire year.
It's refreshing to hear all this BCBS hate. There you go. We've
Mike,
gotten
you said
gotten
Hellas
past
variant?
this, I think. What?
Mike said Hellas variants, lager
Ooh.
substyle resurgence,
Did that
variants
not
on Hellas.
did that not happen?
Hellas variants. I mean, the next resurgent style being thiol beers is pretty awesome.
What
I mean,
about
non-imperial stouts?
What about
and brown ale?
Strange Mike's overall
Uncles,
prediction.
I mean, we completely whiffed.
Nailed it.
Everyone whiffed. But you know what?
What-
I will
what-
say
what wouldn't have
those
whiffed
were,
though?
Weak.
Those were
next resurgent styles. But I
What
will
wouldn't
say,
have whiffed in that category? What was resurgent this year?
my point exactly. You gotta swing hard.
Yeah.
You gotta swing hard, or it doesn't. It's lame. It's lame to be like,
about-
you know.
Did we ever get the cold kvike thing I predicted like 2 years ago?
Yeah. With a hot- yeah, that's right. No.
You don't know. Maybe we did. No one's talking about it.
Yeah. You did say the next big style for craft breweries was NA beers for smaller craft breweries, taproom NA beers. That's what you said.
Nailed
Mike.
it.
You're right.
Just absolutely nailed it.
Yeah. I mean,
Can we
you
get
probably
a-
saw
I mean,
that.
to be
You
fair,
saw that coming already.
It wasn't
That's
just
not
NA
fair.
beers. It was just NA things for tap rooms. So there's a lot more hop waters now.
That's true. Yeah, I would
Unless they
consider
do
that
like
NA.
a Mexican chocolate variant of Orval. I'm out.
Ooh. Would you try it though?
Yeah, dude.
Absolutely. Yeah. You got to.
Exactly. You
course.
got to and be like, oh, how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah. That's their going to be
John, you
that's
said
that's going to be their
drinking
collaboration with
directly from the
Fantome.
can.
Right. That'd be amazing.
I actually thought, I thought that was going to be a thing that people were going to start doing more often because it's space behind the bar that you could use for other things. Just have your specialty bar just serve right out of the cans. Why not?
I think it's a great idea. It's just it's a heady topper extension.
Yeah.
What's this? I missed it. What is it?
John said the next trend is going to be drinking directly from the can.
Serving.
yeah.
This
For
one you're.
serving methods, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, serving. Well, you're right. It's 19.2 ounce cans.
Mine's coming back. I'm still sticking by the one I said last year. Frosted mugs. When Michelob Ultra puts it back in those bottles, you get a little frosted mug, and you're eating your personal pan pizza. That's gonna be a good time. They have those retro Pizza Huts. Maybe they have it.
Well, is there anything that we would like to add to this year-end show before we get out of here? I want to thank our guests, Mike, Doug Valicki, Jude De La Rose,
Nailed it again.
yep,
Nailed it.
and John Rubio.
Nailed all their nailed
Yeah,
it.
it nailed them all
Perfect.
perfectly. And I want to thank you as well. And I want to
thank you. I want to thank you.
the Fade Master Serge. I want to thank him.
Serge is wearing a hat that has an embroidered wine glass on it. It's
Yeah, he
pretty
wears
awesome.
that a lot.
I don't know if I noticed it before.
You know, Serge doesn't drink beer. He's a wine guy. He moved on years ago.
That's
he
right.
moved on like 4 years.
Serge drinks 100 milligrams of THC.
That's where he
He's
was
drinking the
last
entire
week.
four-pack.
He was doing
See,
a
if
wine
that's not
podcast.
He's getting-
sign, Serge-
he's
Serge's
getting
not drinking
faded.
beer.
Yeah, on wine podcasting.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's where he makes his real money.
Yes.
Wine podcasts.
So yeah, we have another year-end show in the bag, and for anyone who wants to send us letters on parchment or typed or handwritten or sent electronically,
You know what we
would
haven't
love
gotten
that.
is like a kidnapping style clips from a magazine
wow.
letter. If you send us one of those, you're getting the Yeti tumbler from 3 Tiers. So that's
Don,
like top.
I guarantee you. But say what you want from 3-tier merch, and if it's apparel, what size?
Uh-huh.
And Don's already given me a blank check. I mean, not literally, but basically literally.
Yeah.
And
Basically, literally.
and he'll give you
think the beer
any
temple will frame it on the
3-tier
wall.
merch, any 3-tier merch that you want. Price is not an option. That is practically a direct quote.
And listen, if you just leave a review and it's 3 stars, Rob Todd's not going to sign your
No.
Yeti tumbler.
No.
So 5 stars for Rob Todd to sign it.
Yeah, 5 stars
Can't-
if you want Rob Todd.
Can't guarantee that.
Well, no, he'll practically sign it.
Yeah. He'll know
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, allegedly he'll sign it.
Don will text him about the fact that he's giving you
Oh,
merch.
he'll know about
Yeah.
it, no doubt, because we'll be with him
Yeah.
when he. Yeah.
That's right.
Well, thank
Okay,
you guys.
anyway, this is-
Thank you guys. Now next year, when we're talking about Rob Todd, Doug will say, "You guys talked about that last year and forgot that you had," and we'll say, "No."
no, we never forgot. We never stopped. Yeah.
Oh, he's already cut me off. Okay. So long, everybody. See you next week.
Bye.
Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again, 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 again. Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said.